You might think your nighttime routine is harmless. You brush your teeth, take your medications, and settle in for the night. But if you're over 60, one simple habit could be silently putting your brain at risk while you sleep. As a neurologist, I've seen far too many cases where seniors experience a stroke in the early morning hours. Not because of smoking or poor diet, but because of daily routines that seem innocent on the surface. One of the most overlooked dangers is going to bed dehydrated. Many older adults stop drinking fluids after dinner, thinking it will help them avoid bathroom trips at night. But this well-meaning habit can backfire in a dangerous way. Overnight, your body continues to lose water through breathing and sweat. If you go to bed even mildly dehydrated, your blood becomes thicker. Thicker blood flows more slowly, which increases the chance of clot formation. And clots are one of the most common causes of stroke. This is especially concerning because as we age, our sense of thirst becomes weaker. By the time you feel thirsty, you might already be significantly dehydrated. Imagine this scenario. A 72-year-old man in good health walks daily, takes his medications, and eats a balanced diet. But he avoids drinking water after 6 p.m. to avoid nighttime urination. One morning, he wakes up unable to speak clearly. His arm is weak, and he feels confused. A stroke occurred overnight while he was asleep. His blood tests reveal dehydration and elevated clotting risk. The truth is that hydration plays a crucial role in maintaining healthy blood circulation and oxygen delivery to the brain. Going to bed without enough fluids puts unnecessary strain on your cardiovascular system and can trigger a silent brain attack during sleep. You don't need to drink a large amount of water before bed. Just a small glass, 4 to 6 ounces about 30 minutes before you lie down, is often enough to keep your blood moving smoothly. It's a tiny habit, but it could mean the difference between waking up feeling normal or facing a life-altering stroke. This advice might sound simple, but it's based on science and clinical experience. Many seniors who suffer nighttime strokes had no warning signs. They felt fine the night before, but their bodies were quietly struggling with thickened, sluggish blood and compromised circulation. If you're reading this and you're over 60, I urge you to take this seriously. Make a small change tonight and protect your brain, because stroke doesn't always announce itself with pain. Sometimes it strikes in silence. After a long day, you might feel tempted to relax in your recliner or favorite couch. It feels cozy, familiar, and comforting, especially if you live alone or simply enjoy a quiet evening. Many older adults doze off watching television, reading a book, or just resting. But what seems like a harmless habit could quietly be putting your brain at serious risk. Falling asleep in a recliner or on the couch, especially night after night, can restrict circulation to your brain. This happens because of the way your head and neck position change when you're in a semi-upright or slouched posture. Often, your head drops forward or tilts to the side for hours. For someone in their 30s, this is usually not a problem. But for seniors with even mild narrowing of the neck arteries, this head position can reduce blood flow to the brain. The condition is known as carotid artery stenosis, and it becomes more common as we age. Now imagine what happens when those partially blocked vessels are compressed for hours while you sleep. The blood supply to your brain slows down, and pooled blood becomes more likely to clot. These clots can later dislodge and travel straight to the brain, leading to a stroke. This scenario isn't just theoretical. I once treated a retired music teacher, age 75, who routinely fell asleep in her recliner each night. She preferred it over her bed because it felt warmer and more comfortable. But one morning, she woke up unable to move her arm or speak clearly. The stroke was traced to reduced nighttime blood flow and silent clot formation. Beyond the mechanical risk from neck posture, poor sleep quality in a chair also worsens overall cardiovascular function. Unlike deep restorative sleep in bed, sleep in a recliner is fragmented. Your body doesn't enter full REM cycles as easily. As a result, inflammation increases, blood sugar becomes less stable, and blood pressure regulation is disrupted. All these factors further raise the risk of stroke. Sleep posture is often ignored in stroke prevention, but it's critical for those over 60. Your brain relies on constant blood flow and oxygen supply through the night. Recliners and couches don't offer the right support for your neck and spine. And without that support, blood vessels can become kinked, compressed, or narrowed. So what should you do instead? Make it a rule to move to your bed every night, no matter how cozy the chair feels. Support your head and neck with a proper pillow, and keep your spine in alignment. If you fall asleep in your recliner during the evening, wake yourself gently and go to bed before midnight. These small actions can significantly lower your risk of blood clots and improve your sleep quality. Remember, the habits that feel most comfortable aren't always the safest for your aging brain. Your recliner might seem like a haven of rest, but if it's quietly restricting circulation, it's no safer than a ticking time bomb. The cost isn't just a bad night's sleep, it could be a life permanently altered. For millions of older adults, managing blood pressure is part of everyday life. It might mean 1 or 2 pills each day, maybe even more. But what many seniors don't realize is that the timing of those medications can quietly turn into a risk, especially when taken right before bed. The mistake seems minor. You read the label. It says once daily. You assume nighttime is fine. You want to stay on schedule. Maybe even your doctor mentioned bedtime years ago and you've stuck with it ever since. But here's what most people don't know for older adults, especially those over 65. Blood pressure naturally dips at night as part of a healthy circadian rhythm. When you combine that dip with a full dose of blood pressure medication, especially beta blockers or AC inhibitors, it can drive your pressure down too far. This phenomenon is called nocturnal hypotension, and it's one of the most overlooked stroke risks in senior care. Your brain needs constant blood flow to stay alive. If your pressure falls too low during sleep, your brain may not receive enough oxygen. The scariest part, you won't feel it. You'll be sleeping peacefully, unaware that your circulation has slowed to a dangerous level. For some, this leads to grogginess, dizziness, or confusion in the morning. For others, it leads to something far worse, a silent stroke during the night. I once cared for a retired firefighter, age 78, who followed every rule. He exercised, ate well, never smoked, and took all his meds on time. Every night at 10 p.m. he lined up his pills, including one for high blood pressure. He thought he was being responsible. But one morning, he didn't wake up as usual. His daughter called, and when he answered, his speech was slurred. He was weak on one side. The stroke had already occurred. His blood pressure was dangerously low when paramedics arrived. It wasn't his medication that was wrong, it was the timing. With age, kidney function changes. So does how our body metabolizes drugs. What worked at 50 might not work at 75. That's why medication timing should never be one size fits all. If you take blood pressure medication at night and feel lightheaded in the morning or overly tired, talk to your doctor. You might benefit from switching to morning doses or even splitting your dose to keep levels steady throughout the day and night. Don't change your routine on your own. Always consult a healthcare provider. But don't ignore this either, because a stroke that happens silently during sleep may leave you unable to speak, walk, or even recognize your own family when you wake up. That's the cruel truth. What you take and when you take it matters. Your brain depends on a steady stream of oxygen-rich blood all night. Disrupt that rhythm and you disrupt your future. You may believe that keeping your bedroom cool at night is a healthy sleep habit. And in general, that's true. Cooler temperatures can help signal the body to fall asleep faster and enter deep sleep more easily. But for seniors, especially those over 60, sleeping in a room that's too cold without adequate bedding or insulation can quietly become a cardiovascular hazard. As a neurologist, I've seen how overlooked this is. Many older adults turn the thermostat down too low, thinking they're saving money or simply following old habits. Some were raised in times when energy conservation was a virtue. Others just prefer the feeling of crisp air. But here's the problem. When your room is too cold, especially below 65 degrees Fahrenheit, your blood vessels constrict to preserve body heat. This process, called vasoconstriction, narrows your arteries. While this is a normal physiological response, it has different consequences in aging bodies. For seniors with stiff arteries or reduced circulation, this narrowing makes the blood move slower. And when blood flow slows, clot risk rises. These clots don't always show symptoms immediately, but they can silently travel to the brain overnight, causing a stroke. Cold also affects your quality of sleep. You may think you're sleeping well under a pile of thin blankets, but in reality, your body stays on alert, trying to regulate temperature. This leads to fragmented sleep or blood pressure control and elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. High nighttime cortisol is linked to higher stroke risk and disrupted cardiovascular rhythms. I remember a case clearly. An 80-year-old woman lived alone in upstate New York. Every winter, she kept her bedroom at 60 degrees. She thought it was fine because she bundled up in an old quilt. But one morning, her son found her shivering, confused, and unable to move one side of her body. She had suffered a stroke during the night. There was no fall, no noise, just silence. Her blood had thickened and slowed. Her arteries had narrowed. And in those quiet hours, a clot had formed. She didn't realize that the cold was quietly pushing her body beyond its limits. Seniors need a warm enough environment at night to maintain stable blood flow. That doesn't mean overheating. The ideal range is between 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. But more importantly, you need breathable warm bedding. Cotton or wool blankets layered properly. Even socks can help if your feet get cold at night. Cold hands and feet are not just discomfort. They're signs that your blood is being shunted away from your limbs to protect your core. If that's happening, you're already in a state of vascular stress. Don't ignore it. Warmth isn't a luxury for older adults. It's a necessity. Just as you wouldn't go to sleep thirsty or slouched in a chair, don't go to sleep freezing. The cost is far too high. A stroke doesn't need noise or drama to arrive. It only needs a few small missteps. And letting your room get too cold while you sleep may be one of them. After a long day, it may feel natural to unwind by watching the news or a favorite crime drama. But what many seniors don't realize is that what you watch before bed can directly affect your brain's health while you sleep. Emotional content, even if it seems mild, can quietly elevate stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline. These chemicals trigger your body's fight or flight response even when you're sitting calmly on the couch. As a neurologist, I've seen how this silent stress can raise blood pressure, disturb heart rhythms, and promote blood clotting. 3 major risk factors for stroke. Seniors are particularly vulnerable because their cardiovascular systems are more sensitive to these late-night stress spikes. One patient told me he watched hours of news and detective shows before bed for years. He thought it was harmless, but he suffered a mild stroke one morning with no warning signs. His tests revealed no smoking, no cholesterol issues, only elevated nighttime cortisol levels and poor sleep quality. Sleep is when the brain restores itself. When stress interferes with this process, the brain is left inflamed, exhausted, and more prone to vascular damage. Instead of relaxation, stressful content creates an invisible storm inside your body. If you want to protect your brain, don't feed it conflict before bed. Choose peace over stimulation. Instead of TV, try soft music reading or simple breathing exercises. These quiet habits help lower blood pressure, reduce cortisol, and support deep healing sleep. The choices you make in your final hour before bed aren't trivial. They shape how your brain survives the night.